When police recovered Liam Potts from the River Tyne, the first picture of what had happened appeared relatively simple. A young soldier had disappeared after a night out. A huge search had ended in tragedy, and police said they did not believe there had been any third-party involvement. But only days later, that position changed, because detectives had started looking much more closely at what happened on Wylam Bridge in the final minutes before Liam disappeared. There had been a disturbance. There had been a vehicle collision involving pedestrians. Liam had been there. And according to police, within minutes of that collision, Liam entered the water. Then came the development that completely changed the direction of the investigation. 2 men who had already been arrested in connection with events around the bridge were arrested again, this time on suspicion of manslaughter. So what happened during those final minutes? And why did investigators go from saying they did not suspect third-party involvement to investigating whether events on that bridge directly contributed to Liam Potts entering the River Tyne? Liam Potts was 22 years old. He was a serving member of the Coldstream Guards. This was not simply a job he kept quietly in the background. Liam had taken part in some of the biggest ceremonial events Britain had seen in recent years. He participated in the funeral procession of Queen Elizabeth II and also took part in the coronation of King Charles III. His family would later describe him as someone impossible to forget. They said that once you met Potsy, as he was known, you never forgot him. They described him as the heart and soul of any room. That makes what happened during the early hours of Saturday, the 15th of August, even more difficult for those who knew him. Liam had been out with friends in Northumberland. At approximately 20 minutes past midnight, he was seen around Wylam Bridge. That location would soon become the center of an investigation, because police were not dealing with only one event that night. They had also received a report of a disturbance. And after that disturbance came another serious incident. A vehicle was involved in a collision with a group of pedestrians on Wylam Bridge. A man and a woman, both in their 20s, suffered serious injuries. Police said those injuries were not considered life-threatening. But there was one detail that would become extremely important. Liam was on the bridge around the time of the collision. However, police have repeatedly made something very clear. Liam was not inside the vehicle, and Liam was not struck by that vehicle. That distinction matters, because when people hear about a collision followed by a death, it is easy to connect the two events immediately. Investigators have not said that Liam was hit by the car. They have not said the collision itself killed him. What they are investigating is something more complicated. What happened around Liam in those final minutes? And did those circumstances somehow lead to him entering the river? After the events on the bridge, Liam was last seen leaving on foot toward Wylam. Then he disappeared. When Liam failed to return home, concern quickly grew. His disappearance triggered an extensive search around Wylam and the River Tyne. Police officers were joined by specialist teams and volunteers. Mountain rescue teams became involved. The Coast Guard assisted. Search teams concentrated heavily on the river. For Liam's family and friends, every passing hour meant more uncertainty. Then, on Tuesday, the 18th of August, the search ended with the news everyone had feared. A body was recovered from the River Tyne at Wylam. Liam's family were informed. At that point, the public information from police appeared to point away from another person being responsible. Police said they did not believe there was any third-party involvement. And that statement is what makes what happened next so important. Because the investigation did not stop. Detectives continued examining the sequence surrounding the bridge. The disturbance, the collision, Liam's movements, and the incredibly short period separating those events from Liam entering the River Tyne. 2 men, aged 22 and 23, had already been arrested in connection with the earlier reports surrounding the disturbance and collision. they were released on bail. But investigators continued working. And according to Northumbria police, further inquiries revealed something crucial. Liam had entered the water within minutes of the collision. Police said the reason he entered the water had not been established. Read that carefully. They did not announce why Liam went into the river. They did not claim that somebody pushed him. They did not say that he was struck by the vehicle. They did not publicly establish exactly what happened during those final moments. What they established was the timing. Within minutes. And that timing was important enough for the investigation to change direction. On Saturday, the 22nd of August, police announced another major development. The same two men were rearrested, but now they were being held on suspicion of manslaughter. Northumbria police said its major investigation detectives were trying to establish whether there was any link between the collision and Liam entering the water. The senior investigating officer explained that the basic facts had not changed. Liam had been on the bridge. He had not been inside the vehicle. He had not been struck by it. But he entered the water within minutes of the collision. And that is now the central question detectives are trying to answer. Was that simply a sequence of separate events happening close together? Or was there a connection between what happened on that bridge and Liam entering the river? The two men were later released on police bail. They have not been charged. And being arrested on suspicion of an offense does not establish guilt. That is especially important in this case because so much remains unknown publicly. We do not know exactly what Liam saw. We do not know exactly what was happening around him immediately before he entered the water. We do not know why he entered the river. And police have specifically asked people not to speculate because the investigation remains active. So, was this not a case where the evidence allows us to build dramatic theories around unnamed suspects? The mystery is already powerful enough without doing that. Because the confirmed timeline raises a very simple question. What happened during those few minutes? Think about how dramatically the investigation changed. First, Liam disappears following a night out. Search teams concentrate on the River Tyne. His body is recovered. Police say they do not believe another person was involved. Then detectives examine the events surrounding the bridge more closely. They establish that Liam entered the water within minutes of the collision, and two men are rearrested on suspicion of manslaughter. That does not mean police have solved what happened. It means detectives found enough reason to investigate whether the events are connected. And there is another important detail. The collision itself was serious. A man and a woman were injured. The woman was later discharged from hospital. The man remained in hospital for further treatment when police announced the manslaughter arrests. But Liam was neither of those injured pedestrians. He was not hit. So whatever investigators are examining cannot simply be explained by saying Liam was the victim of the collision. There is another part of the sequence that police are trying to understand. Something between the disturbance, the collision, and Liam entering the river. And until investigators establish what that was, nobody outside the investigation can truthfully say exactly what happened. For Liam's family, however, the investigation is about more than reconstructing a timeline. It is about finding answers for a 22-year-old man they clearly love deeply. Their tribute gives you an idea of the person behind the police statements and headlines. They remembered his smile, his laugh, the small things that made him who he was. They thanked the people who searched for him and the members of the public who supported the family. And they thanked the specialist police team that recovered Liam from the river. Those words are worth remembering because an investigation like this can quickly become dominated by arrests and legal terminology. But at the center of it is a family who lost someone. And they are still waiting to understand why. There are now several pieces investigators need to put together. What exactly happened during the disturbance? What happened during the collision? Where was Liam during every stage of those events? What happened after he left the bridge on foot? Why did he enter the water? And most importantly, was his decision or movement toward the river directly connected to something that happened moments earlier? Those questions explain why this case changed so quickly. Not because police suddenly announced they knew what happened, but because further investigation raised questions that apparently were not resolved when Liam was first recovered. And there is an important difference between those two things. A manslaughter arrest is part of an investigation. It is not a conviction. It is not a charge. And it is not proof that another person caused Liam's death. The two men remain on police bail while inquiries continue. Until investigators release more evidence, that is where the case stands. But one confirmed fact continues to stand out above everything else. Minutes. Police say Liam entered the River Tyne within minutes of the collision on Wylam Bridge. That tiny window of time has become the most important part of the story. Because somewhere inside those minutes could be the explanation detectives are searching for. The explanation for why Liam went into the river. The explanation for why an investigation that initially appeared to involve no third party became a manslaughter investigation. And ultimately, the explanation Liam Potts' family deserves. For now, there are arrests. There is an investigation, but there is no charge. And there is still one question nobody outside that investigation can answer. What happened to Liam Potts in those final minutes near Wylam Bridge?